Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm joined today not only by Kevin Graham, but also Jared Hill. It's been far too long, mate. How you been?
Living the dream, Paul. Living the dream. Just, trying to stay out of trouble down here in Australia. So, you know how it is.
Staying out of trouble indeed. I'm delighted that you're on, actually, because we're in that period where it's pre-season. Every single day we will have updates on movers and shakers, incomings and departures, who should stay, who should go. And there's going to be a lot of that kind of chat, and also any other news that comes our way in relation even to your countryman, Ange Postecoglou. Listen, we don't tend to labour too much on ex-players, ex-managers, etc., Jared, but we went on such a journey with Ange, didn't we? I mean, you guys came in, you knew the script before the rest of us. You had the inside take on Ange, just like Liam had it on the Japanese imports. And I'm guessing you've continued to watch the big fella winning a European trophy, and we're just waiting for them to pull the trigger and sack him. It's madness, isn't it?
I'm absolutely wrapped for Ange. Tottenham are a scummy club, in my opinion. So I won't miss there, and I'll probably cop it. But yeah, I've only met two good Tottenham fans in my life. The rest, every single one I've come across is a bit of an idiot. So, yeah, great for the big man. Love to see him going and doing that whole thing, saying, I always win trophies in the second season, delivering. Yep, that's what we expect. That's what I thought would come for him. Didn't think it'd be that one, but class act he is. And, yeah, I actually thought a perfect landing spot for him would be taken over at, what's it called?
Leverkusen.
By Leverkusen was what I was saying, but they've apparently filled that role there. So, yeah, it could be interesting to see where he ends up if he does get the flick.
Yeah, this is a big question. I'm going to bring Liam in. I don't know what the time is, but I think it's pretty late over in Japan. There he is, Liam, beautiful top, decked out impeccably as always. And I know a lot of people, as I say, don't like talking about the past in terms of people that have moved on, Liam, but we have opened up today because there's going to be a bit of chat around Marco Tillio with Jared having the inside track on that, watching him a lot more closely than any of us do. And, you know, the big story about Ange getting the sack, and there's two things here. There is what next for the big fella, but also, doesn't it just show the madness of the English game when that kind of thing can happen?
Well, I mean, we've seen it before. You know, Carlo Ancelotti gets sacked, 4 or 5 months after winning Leicester's only ever league title.
Claudio Ranieri.
Ranieri. I apologise, Ranieri. But you know what I mean? That idea of like a manager could win something completely unprecedented. And let's face it, anybody who wins a trophy with Spurs is largely unprecedented.
Aye.
And then he just gets thrown out,
thrown on the scrap heap.
I hope Ange walks, because he deserves far better than that absolute basket case of a club.
He's not going to walk, Liam. He's got a big wedge coming his way if he gets paid off. That's
he would walk if somebody was willing to give him a bigger wedge.
Definitely, but for me, I reckon he's known that he was getting canned in the summer anyway, and he's done a wee bit of self-preservation by making sure that he won something. I think when you actually look at it, I read an article in The Athletic where they basically says is nobody behind the scenes in Tottenham could understand why he tanked their season to go out to all win the Europa League. Basically because he knew, one, they weren't going to get relegated, and two, they had so many injuries that they weren't going to be competitive. So he put everything in one basket, and he's came out it looking great. Tottenham are going to come out it looking like Tottenham.
Looking like Tottenham, but also in the Champions League, Kev. So, there's a balance to be had there. And if that's Ange's plan, it was a risky one, but he's pulled it off. The big man's pulled it off. You might ask why we're starting off with Ange. 2 reasons. The first one is we've got Jared on the show, and it's an absolute pleasure to have him on the show. But also, you get a sense, guys, that, it was probably Ange that identified Marco Tillio, or certainly his contacts, the agency that he was working very closely with when it came to identifying players. And we're going to start talking about Tillio amongst other players who might be leaving the club, and also those who are coming in. But before we do that, where next then? We'll leave it at this. Where next for Ange, Kev? I'll ask you first. Where do you think the big fella will go?
I'm sure he will be in demand. I don't think he'll stay in England. I think he's done the England thing now. So I think he'll maybe move on. Maybe a Greek side, maybe back that way, somewhere across it. I would take him back, Ellis. I really would. I mean, as I said a couple of weeks ago after the bet Bodo Glimp, when they had that video in the dressing room that I would, if he wanted to come and give me that team talk at the Walking Football, I would walk through a brick wall for him.
I would walk through a brick wall.
and after watching that, then hearing Brendan Rodgers talking about how he was going to give the boys a presentation, I would rather have Ange telling me that I'm great than watch a presentation.
But Brendan also gets results, doesn't he, Kev? And by the way, I get it. And, you know, stranger things have happened. I mean, Brendan Rodgers came back. That's maybe one for the future. But I agree with you. I don't think English football has been the kind of the dream job that he might have thought it was. Liam, we talk, you know, you go right back to him
wrong
talking
club.
about...
Completely wrong club.
Wrong club, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, you know, even at that, though, to win a European trophy, doesn't matter to me if it's a second or a third tier of European trophy. That's what he did, which was incredible at that wrong club. But where do you think he goes next? I tend to agree with Kev, Liam. I don't think he's going to stay in England.
I wonder, I'm sure I remember reading an interview with Ange some time ago, and Jared would probably know this better than me, but hasn't he mentioned at some point he wants to manage the Greek national team?
Yeah,
that would be a great job for him, because that's the sort of team he could take them and probably get them to a Euros, maybe even get them to a World Cup. Because Greece are one of the teams that if they get the right coach, they could do things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. International football. Yeah, I could see it happening. And Jared, again, I don't know if there's any kind of press speculation over there. I tend to ask Liam his take on things like Maeda's future and stuff, because obviously it's pretty different over there when it comes to the media. What's the chat in Australia about Ange and what's going to happen next for the big guy?
Not, to be honest with you. It's just a wait and see sort of thing. Half the press is talking about, oh, he's going to be given another year. He's going to stay it out because winning that trophy bought him some time and the injuries and stuff. And then the other half of it is saying, yeah, he's going to get the flick. So you don't know where he's going to end up. But for me, as you're saying there, Liam, he said early on that he coached Australia for himself. Now he wants to coach Greece for his dad before he finishes his career.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something he'll probably do right at the end of his career when he looks at it and goes, okay, I have 4 years left or 3 years left in my career. What's a qualification cycle, whether it's a World Cup and Euros? Let's get on that and run with Greece. Wouldn't surprise me if he does that. But for myself, I don't think he'll stay in England. Andrew's a sort where he always likes a new challenge. His club managed in Greece 4 years ago. It didn't go well and was home again after 3 months. So I don't think he's going to go over there to a Greek club. What I'm thinking is what league would suit Andrew's style of football. The German league, the Bundesliga would, and Spain probably would. Above us, Italy's probably too defensive. So I was having a look, and if he was going to look for a club, because, you know, he loves a project, he's not going to end up at Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico, or Athletic Bilbao, right? So we can put a line through those 4 clubs straight away in Spain. So me looking through at the rest of them, the sort of clubs that are fallen giants who get Ange in, good bit of good recruitment and can make a massive jump and challenge for a Champions League spot in Spain, a club like Sevilla or a club like Valencia, those are the sort of I could see him going into and being a perfect sort of fit for him. Come in, spend 3 years there, because his life cycle at a club's 2 to 3 years, and build it up over that time and then look for the next challenge.
Yeah.
I'll
Sorry, on you go, Kev.
I'll fire a team in Spain, Girona, part of the City group.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
Also, and this is the only time I'm going to give the Celtic board any credit in the next hour or so. 2 managers, one that we appointed and one that we interviewed, both won European trophies this season.
Kev, see, last week we were trying to figure out who you give credit to on that one, and it's probably Mark Lowell, and I know he wasn't on the board, but it's probably Mark Lowell, because, you know, when you read everything and then you hear Angie's interviews and all the rest of it, it was pretty clear that it was Mark Lowell's contact, you know, through the City group that got us in touch with Ange Postecoglou, and it was probably his contact that got us Enzo Maresca as well. So, Yeah, we've slagged them off for a bit, Kev, but sometimes you put your hands up and say, you've probably done all right there.
No, that's it. That's the only bit of credit I'm going to give him.
And he wasn't even on the board, so you're not even giving it to the board, Kev.
And they've sacked him anyway. So there you go.
Yeah. That's it. I know. One final question before
we can't even hire Nepo babies properly. Is that the point you're trying to make?
Yeah. There's another Nepo manager discussion elsewhere, I think, there, Liam. Absolutely. A while back, actually, probably 2 years ago, and I might have sent it to you, Jared, at the time, but there was an Australian production team looking to make a documentary on Ferenc Puskas, but a big focus was on his working relationship with Ange when he managed Ange over in Australia. So we kind of seen this project at the very genesis, where they're looking for funding and all that. I was sent a kind of rough draft of the movie before they got all the rights signed off and everything, so it wasn't the final movie. But I see that it's been finished and it's been launched. You had a chance to watch it, mate? The Puskas Ange doc.
It came out in very select cinemas. I think it was only out in 3 cinemas. That was it. All the little art house sort of cinemas that aren't my scene. If I walked in looking at one of them, they'd probably be like, "Are you lost, mate?" So I don't wear enough like double denim and stuff like that to get away with it. So there you go. But
Chris is going to be in the comments and it.
I did that for him. He's got the hair and everything. He's got the look that he'd fit in there, not me. Come on. Your way. No, don't fit in. So no, but
art school, Chris. I love that. I love that. Brilliant.
Yeah, I went in and I saw it. I saw the thing. I saw the rough cut as well, right? And yeah, it wasn't too much difference between the two of them, but yeah, it was a class movie. There was a few people when I went and saw it. Bit of blubbing going on. Needed some tissues. A bit emotional. Bit of a good thing there, but yeah, Andrew's like an absolute icon over here, and chuck Puskas in there, and there you go. If you can check it out, anyone gets a chance to watch it, make sure you do.
Yeah, it's a great formula. And I've said to the guys, simply because we were in touch from those early days, if they want to do a Glasgow screening, I still think there would be an interest around it. Obviously, the Ange link, but obviously Jock Steen's link to the great Hungarian Puskas team of the 50s. But one thing I found really interesting was when he turns up as a manager, Puskas this is, in Australia. And you see some of the footage, Jared, and they're playing in like public parks and stuff like that. And there's Ferenc Puskas, the great Puskas. Some would say one of the greatest footballers of all time. Many would. And they were like, what do we call him? You've just basically been introduced to a legendary man. What do you call the guy? Is he a gaffer? Is he this? Is he that? And he turns up for training wearing a Hugo Boss jersey. Remember that picture? And it's a big, massively over-branded Boss on his jersey. So they decided because of that, they would call him Boss. And that's where they got his name. And there you go. And obviously, Ange has always been called Boss as well. Jungle Lion, you're right. TCB, the Elvis-themed show, starts today. And the urban culture is all shook up, waiting for Acsom. He's missed the last few. We want you to let us know what you think about Ange's next move. He is an ex-Celtic manager who did very well for the football club. And we also want you to let us know about some of the players that we might be moving on. So I'm going to start off here. There was a story during the week there that was run by Sky Sports. I've obviously, as I always do in a pre-season, Kev, I've given you the list of guys I think we can do without. We can move on. They're not going to contribute, push them out. And every single one of them that I mentioned is on this list, but obviously it's a much shorter list. This was on Sky Sports. So they reckon we're looking to move on Gustav Lagerbielke, Lewis Palmer, Mike Nawrocki, Stephen Welsh, and the aforementioned Marco Tillio. So there's the names that Sky Sports have run with. They were 5 of, I think, 10 or 11 I gave last week. Scott Bain, the dearly departed, he was also on my list. So I want to focus initially on Tillio because, as I said, I reckon it was the recruitment team or the approach of Ange that brought Marco to the team, to the club, over from Australia, Kev. There was a lot of stuff happening with the player, not just on the park, which resulted in him going back to Australia. And he's done really well. And this is the big thing. If you go out on loan and you do well, do you deserve another shot? Because he seems to have done pretty well. And what you're saying, bring him in, give him the kind of run that Yang's had, have a look at him or give him a pre-season. What does the future hold, in your opinion, Kev, for Marco Tillio?
I think first thing I want to go back to Benzo. I need to.
That's fair enough. We've always got time for Benzo.
I need to go back to Benzo. I actually saw the other day, and I can't remember this happening. And it was obviously during COVID times, and a lot of things I can't remember happening. Did like that COVID season actually exist? But I saw him saving a penalty kick in a away game in Europe. I have no memory of that happening. He saved a penalty kick against Lille.
Yeah, that was a strange game though. Is that not the same game that David Turnbull and Sorrell were thrown into? Was that the same game?
Is that the one when they became your saviours? They
became the saviours for
5.5 minutes, and then we decided they were rubbish like the rest of them. I can't remember that at all.
Henderson, remember Henderson played that night as well, and he played pretty well. And we thought he was going to be a player for us. That's it. Yeah, it was a strange season, Kev. A lot of strange things happened, mate. Benzo even saved the penalty. You're right.
Tillio. Basically, I'm of the opinion that I didn't write off anybody after they've been out on loan and they come back. Because anybody, even though everything we've seen of the players that you've mentioned probably points to that they're not going to be kept around in the club, or somebody at the club, those who make the decisions in the club, those who make the decisions in the club have made their minds up about these certain players. With Tillio, we do need more creativity in the team. So I'm happy to give any sort of creativity whatsoever the chance to actually shine, because let's face it, we were completely boring after the team died in Munich. The Solly Brendan's team died in Munich, and now we've went back to August 2023 levels of performance, which is bland, boring, and half the players didn't look like they want to be there. So I'll bring in anybody that fires in a wee bit of creativity. Might not work, but it can't be any worse than what we've already got.
It's the spark, it's the creativity, it's the unknown as well, I think, Liam. And I'm not saying had Marco Tillio been on the bench to the Scottish Cup final, he would have been the secret weapon. But I'm a wee bit like Kev. If somebody has gone out, performed well, Kev's dying to get back in. Is it another Benzo penalty save?
No, it's not another Benzo. And I says a couple of weeks ago, I think Yang had improved from January with the amount of games that he had played, but he completely bottled the cup final. So for me, that sets him back.
So your Yang ometers are way back down to zero?
Yes, I completely bottled that final. Even though he has improved, his pants were filled when he burst into that box.
I think after 2 years at the club, Tillio's not had that luxury of being at Celtic, training, being observed by the manager for 2 years, day in, day out, being given challenges in home games in Europe, away from home, when the chips are down or when you're flying. So we've seen all that from Yang. And I think it's much easier, and I think we're all right as fans to say, I can make a decision based on what I've seen over 2 years on Yang. I'm not confident that he could be trusted, and in particular in a big game. Right, there you go. We seem to be out of steam. There's the Scottish Cup final. Go out and make something happen. Give us that spark and change the game. Yang's shown that he can't do it. I don't know if Tillio can, Liam. That's why I'm asking the question. Because I think, what have we seen? 28 minutes of football in a Celtic jersey.
Look, Tillio is one of those guys, maybe along similar lines to Yosuke Deguchi would be another recent example. He only managed about a game and a half before he got crocked, and he never really got back in. And I saw him win the cup with Kobe this season in Tokyo. So he's obviously a good player at a certain level, but he never got the chance to prove it at Celtic. And Tillio is now in the same place because he's been back in his home country. He's proven he can do it there. It's just a case of, can he make that step up to Celtic? But the complicating factor is the injury to Jota, because that creates an opening for a winger.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I reckon you give Tillio a chance until Christmas. Whether he starts or not, I don't know. But you have him as part of the squad, because we are short on wingers until Jota comes back.
Absolutely. And there might be other moves. We'll touch on that later on in the show, Liam. There might be other moves with some of our wingers. There's been speculation. And finally, I come to yourself, Jared. You do have the specialist knowledge. You're watching them at close quarters. I know there's a lot of people who kind of look down their nose at Australian football, but I remember the excitement around Tillio coming, the fact that he was the most expensive player we had ever bought from Australia. In fact, was he not the most expensive export at the time when Celtic bought him? Yeah,
definitely was. And there's a comment in here from Franny McCann saying Tillio doesn't have the physique to play at our level. Australia just isn't a good level to judge a player. Rogic, look at all the guys at Hearts, look at the guys who went to St Mirren. The thing is, if you look at if you're one of those stat heads, which I'm not, but when you look at it, you take out Celtic and Rangers, whichever incarnation, right? And you compare the Australian League on all the stats, it is comparable. So I don't know where people get that mindset from. Celtic and Rangers, 100%, if they were in the league down here, they would cakewalk it, exactly like they do over in Scotland. But the rest of the way, it's the same thing. So as far as I'm concerned, like that's just a silly comment to make. And then on top of it, where you've got like Monty saying Tillio is pish, well, it couldn't be any worse than Yang. Like, let's be honest, you get the A-League Grand Final on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
This guy played the full, I think he played pretty much the full 90 minutes, came off maybe a minute to go just to waste some clock. Would have been the second best player on the pitch behind the guy who scored the only goal in the grand final. It was a 1-1 game, and that's where he was. They were playing him in the 10, not as a winger, but gave him the freedom to float to the left if he needed to, if there was a chance to overlap and create numbers, float to the right. He was dropping back into the defensive midfield spot. Even at one point, he was at the centre-back position, getting the ball off the goalkeeper to then bring a long pass forward. So how you can judge him on what he is after 27, 28 minutes when he came to the club and he was injured, then he made 3 substitute appearances, got injured again, then had to come home because family health issues, which I'm not going to get into, but what I found out is some pretty intense stuff. If that was me, I would have come home too. And then gets injured again once he's back here. So 3 injuries in one season, finally gets a full preseason. And over the last 2 or 3 months has been probably one of the best 2 or 3 players in the Australian League. And you're trying to tell me that guy can't come in and do a job better than Yang did in the cup final. You're having a laugh.
Oh, brilliantly put. And by the way, talking about loan players, it's often you look at it and you think, right, they're surplus to requirements, off you pop. I think we need to look at loans differently. I think we need to. We were with Stubbsy on Saturday night. We'll come back to that because Kev was on the stage wearing a pair of shorts and our new Casper Saves t-shirt, giving us a wee bit of poetry and winding people up.
I've still got shorts on there.
Have you?
Like, I would stand up, but I'm not going to. But I still have got shorts on.
Yeah, I believe you. And Stubbsy was telling us that there is an opportunity for him to get back into. I better not say the club because it's no public knowledge, but into a club as the loan manager, Jared. You know, so it's like you put these guys out on loan. In Celtic, because we don't have a reserve team, we don't have a decent team in the league pyramid at the moment below the Premiership. We need to loan a lot of players out, and often it's a dozen or 15 guys that are out all over the globe. And what the English teams are doing is they're employing loan managers who are the point of contact for the guys that are out there, but also they're dealing with the scouting of it as well, and they're feeding reports back to the manager, and they're liaising with the manager of the other team and all this kind of stuff, Jared. So, listen, probably a week and a half ago, I'm saying Tillio get rid. But I've been reflecting on this, and maybe the performance in the cup final of someone who was expected to give us a spark, maybe because we've got the Jota long-term injury, and maybe because Kuhn and Maeda will have interest this summer. I'm thinking, right, Rodgers always talks about looking from within first, Jared. That's what he says, rather than going out and spending another £2.5 million. I'm now in a situation where I'm going to go with what Liam says and say, bring him back for a full pre-season, give him 6 months up to January. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I think he deserves that chance, Jared. I think you're in the same boat as me with that.
The thing with Tillio, and I'm going to say it, I'm not saying he's going to come in and displace Kuhn and Jota and be a starter at a Champions League level for us, right? But comparing him to the backups that we had in the Scottish Cup final like Yang, he could do a better job than that. Is that the level Celtic needs going forward? No. So for me, I've said it on our podcast a few times that I don't necessarily see him being a Celtic level coming in and doing that. But what I would love for him to get a full preseason under Brennan's belt. Let's have a look at what he can do. And then Tillio has said that he wants to play in Europe next year. Mm-hmm. He wants to make the move over there. Worst case scenario, he comes in. We look at him, as Liam said, 6 months, even if we don't get to that point. And what happens? We put him out on loan within Europe. If he doesn't play for us, what was the club we bought Kun from? Loan him there. Something like that. Get him in the shop window. He'll still have 2 years left on his contract. So we'll make the money back we spent. It'll be another burner-based situation where we can make more money. I'm not necessarily saying that I think he's good enough for Celtic, but he's better than what we currently have as backups.
Mm-hmm.
And in the grand final, and there's another mention early on, Arzani was just as good as him. And Arzani was one who played 14 minutes or so and then did his knee. So at the end of the day, like, we can't keep lumping Tillio and Arzani together, guys who got injured. Now, I know I've got my green tinted specs on, or the Socceroo specs on, or whatever. People will say that. But at the end of the day, like, I watch the A-League as much as I watch Celtic and Scottish football. And that's every weekend. So for me, I don't know if Tillio is the answer, but he's better than Yang, and he's not what we need for Champions League.
I think the point is we lack creativity in the squad, and we've got a guy coming back. It adds a wee bit of creativity, and maybe the coaches there have got their predefined opinions on him, and he's not going to get that chance. But for us, I don't think we can write off anybody, mainly because of the way that we do business. They will have a look at him again. I'm sure they will have a look at him again, because he has been out, he has been playing games, and they will have been keeping an eye on him. Maybe Darren O'Dea's been keeping an eye on him, who actually knows. But we need creativity in the squad, and if you're going to bring in a guy who is already one of your players, to no game the pre-season to have a wee look at, then we're not doing something right, unless there's already an offer on the table where we go, right, we're going to take that. It's the same with other players that Paul mentioned as well. See, I mean, if folk actually forget that Tom Rogic went back to Australia for a loan period and came back and became the player that we all wanted, eh? So it can actually happen. So this is why I'm loath to write off any loan guy coming back into the club, because things can actually change. I mean Narovski's mentioned there in that list with Sky Sports. What happens if Cameron Carter-Vickers decides he wants to leave?
Well,
and he's going to let two right-hand-sided centre-halves walk at the door in the same summer?
I think there's a discussion around that, Kev, exactly. The decision seems to have been made in Brendan's head that Navrosky's never going to make it at Celtic, Lagerbielke's never going to make it at Celtic. But the flip side of that is he seems to persevere with others who may not be up to standard, like Yang. I think Yang's a classic example of that. He perseveres with Yang. Yang gets game time. I think the perseverance with others might be down to the fact that he brought them to the football club. But you're right, Navrosky will be a left elite. I don't think Carter-Vickers will, though, Kev. I don't think, when it comes to the price tag of Cameron Carter-Vickers, the injury history that he's had at Celtic, I don't see him being in that radar of leaving the football club.
I don't know. There's a lot of guys there who, maybe this is just me, Rodgers talks about this, the Trinity, like the players, manager, supporters. I saw a lot of guys that were bored at Trophy Day. I saw a lot of players that couldn't be bored at Trophy Day. As they were always going, this is what happens. They weren't appreciating being in the moment. They weren't appreciating the fact that what Celtic can actually give them, that this is going to be the best place that they ever play football. And I think a lot of them are bored, and I'm going to put Cameron Carter-Vickers in that bit. I mean,
you're talking about players that are at a certain stage of their cycle at Celtic, Kev, and coming maybe to that end of the cycle. Is that what you're...
Or even guys that have just arrived that do not realise what we're actually giving them, do not realise it's a privilege to play for this football club, do not realise that they might not win a league next year, do not realise that they might not never get another chance to go for a treble again. It's just that sort of... It's complacency, I think, maybe crept in to some of the players, and they should want to be bursting a gut to play for Celtic. But I understand that it's boring playing in Scottish football. We've heard that with guys. Do you think the players that when the final whistle went on last Saturday, right, went away and they're gone, that was a missed opportunity? They'll only be bored. They'll maybe think about it in 10, 20 years' time, but they'll only be bored, because as far as they're concerned, their season finished in Munich. That's when they're.
I disagree. I'm going to disagree, because I think that if that's the case, then your team's heading for a fall off a cliff. And Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor are the two guys mainly who would ensure that that doesn't happen. I mean, Kev, I'm not saying it doesn't happen on individual examples. Like, I think there are players who come in who don't understand the importance of this football club to so many people worldwide. And if they don't, either A, they'll not be at the club, or B, very soon they will realise. And I think I've spoken to more players who say they come to Celtic and they didn't realise the extent of what this football club was in terms of the demands of the fan base and those within the club. But they soon do. And if you don't, you're barcass, you're away, and you've not made an impression, you know. But I'm hoping that's not the case with the squad we've got there now.
I'm hoping it's not the case, but I mean, we ended up a cup final with Greg Taylor and Luke McCowan in the middle of the park with Yang and Johnny Kenny up front. Not one of a Brendan Rodgers signing has actually made an impression. Big Eda, 20 goals he has, eh? But the main players on our team are all the previous manager signings. They're all the previous manager signings, and they've won everything in Scottish football.
Schmeichel's made an impression this season. You were wearing his t-shirt on Saturday night.
I was, but
Engels.
You get where I'm coming from.
And I'll go toe to toe with anybody on Engels, because I think it's bizarre when there are people in the Scottish media saying that Engels was worth £3 million. And I keep going back to it. See if we do sell him this summer for 20, Liam. There's people in here who'll say he wasn't worth 11. Even when we sell him for 20 million, they'll still say it wasn't worth 11 million. The Engels chat, I'm astonished with it. Yeah, he's not been brilliant every week. He's not been man of the match every week. He's inconsistent, but he's only 21. He's developing. So I think Ida and Schmeichel this season, for me, have been decent signings. I think Jota, you know, we can't write Jota off. He wasn't a player that was identified with Brennan, obviously. He was on Celtic's radar, of course. He was a good signing until he got injured. But you're right, the crux of the team, and this is the legacy of Ange. We opened up with Ange, Kev. The crux of the team are players that played under Ange Postecoglou.
You're mentioning Jota, but we signed him under Postecoglou.
I know, that's the legacy of Big Ange.
Aye. So
and the money, and this is something last week we spoke about, the money that we're bringing in for players that Ange Postecoglou brought to the club is going to end up totaling £100 million. You know, you've got Matt O'Reilly for 26, Jota for 25. You've got two guys at 10, Kyogo and Abada. Then you've got various other guys like Yakimakis, Starfelt, Juranovic. Unbelievable business. That's the legacy of Ange Postecoglou. You're spot on, Kev. But maybe Brendan's a better coach than a talent spotter then.
So sorry that I'm going to go off on a wee tangent here. The connection between the fans and the squad, right? The connection between, you mentioned Jota, Yakimakis, Juranovic, Abada, Kyogo.
Yeah.
We had songs for all 5 of the players. Mm-hmm. Name any player in that squad that we've got a song for.
James Forrest. If you got 16 years, mate.
he doesn't appreciate. Well, I've got a Coon song, but it doesn't get an airing very, very often. We had more a connection to Postecoglou's team than what we've got to this team. Maybe that's what I'm getting at.
Why do you think that was then, lads? I'm not disagreeing with you, mate. Why do you think it was?
The football was more entertaining.
The entertaining style of the game that we played, probably.
The thing is with Ange, even if we didn't win every game, you knew you were going to see a good game of football pretty much every week. Mm-hmm. And the reality is with Brendan, that's not always the case. And, you know, I mean, there is one thing which I'm probably going to get some abuse for this, but I just need to say it. It's been bugging me for a wee while. I get absolutely raging when I hear people from England or people who are English football fans, but not necessarily from there, go on about Scotland, pub league, Scotland, and there's only one team can win the league, whatever. A lot of the people in the comments today come out with the exact same pish about Australia, and it's completely out of order. Because we cannot get angry when people like the English look down on our league, and then we do the same to the Australian league, which is,
I agree with you,
is as good a pool for talent as Scotland is, if not more so. How many World Cups have Australia been to since the last time Scotland got to one?
Yeah, you know? And we've had the same discussion about Japanese football. Then.
Aye.
Aye, all of them. No, this is the thing. And Kev, I think you make a good point there about that connection, and that connection being linked probably to the style of football that we see as what has been described as the Celtic way, isn't it? You know, the free-flowing football, the entertaining football.
I think it was a connection. I think the players had a bit more personality.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you've got Callum McGregor, and I love Callum to bits, but sometimes you feel like he's trying to force a personality is no there. Kyogo was the only hero that we had in that team, and we settled. And we tried to replace him with Jota, but Jota never got up to speed, then he got injured, right? But Kyogo brought the players, when they were doing the Lappy appreciation, all that, Kyogo would be that connection between, because he had that outgoing personality, right? There's none of them there. Under Postecoglou, Juranovic had it, Abada had it. They were willing to actually get. And it goes back to me to Trophy Day when they got hurried right round that park, stay away from the fans. There is a disconnect, and maybe it's just the personality in the squad that can perform. But I think they've regressed to August 2023, and there's a bit of that Holy Trinity news broke a wee bit.
Yeah, and by the way, you're talking about disconnect. It actually leads us on nicely to one of the talking points I wanted to bring up.
And Scottish football is rubbish, and I'll say that, and I watch it week in, week out. But I'm allowed to say it.
There's
self-deprecation is fine.
I'm allowed to say
it. You don't know about is what I've got an issue with. So fire in, mate, no problem.
Scottish football's got massive problems, and most of them come from the higher reaches of the game, Kev. I mean, when on the grassroots with regards to the fans, it's the fans that make Scottish football.
That's all we've got.
100%. It's the fans. But there's a lot to be discussed there, and we'll touch on that in a wee second as well. But the Green Brigade, I want to touch on the Green Brigade because it came to my attention a couple of weeks ago, actually, that there had been this. We all kind of thought that maybe there'd been this disconnect, to use Kev's word, between the Green Brigade and the club. And there's obviously been a story run confirming that the relationship has broken down. They're not talking. And I'm a great believer, Jared, in not just Scottish football, but when you take Celtic, for example, what makes you stand out from the pack, and I'm not talking finances and all this kind of stuff, it's the fans. The fans are always there. And when I look at people on the board, even though some of them have been there far too long, I'll still be a Celtic fan when every single one of them's away. I'll still be a Celtic fan when every player in that squad has left the football club, and every single member of staff and every man. I'll still be a Celtic supporter. So that's your constant. And what you need to do is, for me as a football club, is you need to embrace it. You need to engage with your fan base. You need to treat them as fans and not customers. We know we're in a commercial world. We sell merchandise at a Celtic State of Mind because it's part of making the thing actually work. But you can't put too much emphasis on the commercial aspect of it. You've got to engage with the fans. I'm gutted to hear that there's been this breakdown, but I'm not surprised, Jared. And, you know, for me, I've been saying it, it's all about getting around that table and thrashing it out and talking about it and start that engagement again. I would go one further, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this because it's only my view on it. I think the club needs an ultra liaison officer. He's probably sitting top left, but he's banned. An ultra liaison officer who's not employed by the football club, Jared, who knows the terrace culture, who may have been involved in an ultra movement or an ultra group in the past. And I think that needs to be put in place to work as a buffer between the fan group and the club.
I think it's a football thing in general, because we have issues over here as well between the active support, or the ultras as it's known over there, and a lot of the clubs here, and the police. And that's the biggest issue. Like, we talk about the holy trinity of the club being the fans, the players, and the manager or the board or whatever it is. There's also that trinity there where it's the fans, the police, and the clubs. And we've got that breakdown with the Green Brigade and over here. And the way I look at it is, yeah, you're right, Paul, we do need some sort of liaison officer, but they need to sit down with all of them, because we're not criminals for going to a football game. Mm-hmm. Just because we're wearing our club colours and we're going to a stadium and we're going to spend 90 minutes, 100 minutes if you add stoppage time, we're going to spend that having a couple of drinks. I know you guys can't in the stadium there, but have a couple of beers or pre-game, do a few of that, and then get out there and have a sing, cheer your team on, act a little bit antisocial by, pointing to some player and going, yeah, you're a wanker sort of thing that happens at every game. Doesn't matter what wide shot you get, there's always someone doing that. And you get on with it, right? And you cuddle some strangers and you celebrate goals and whatever. But at the end of the day, the police don't seem to understand that. And that's part of the breakdown as well, because the clubs need to be that bridge between the police and their supporters, and they don't do it. And that's the issue. So that's how I see it needs to happen. Someone outside of the Glasgow Goldfish Bowl, that's what needs to happen. I agree with you, Paul. You need to have someone there to liaison, but bring the police into these discussions, not just with the club as well. You've got to sort it out on all three fronts.
Without a doubt. And by the way, I'm going to say this. I know that we do have a liaison officer for the fans, and it's John Paul Taylor, and I think he does.
And he's a great guy.
A phenomenal job.
He does a phenomenal job. He does.
He does a brilliant job, and he's under the cosh, Kev, because I keep going back to you interviewed the Feyenoord guys years ago. I'm talking 5 years ago, and it's out there. It's on Acsom on the YouTube channel, and at that time, Feyenoord had 6 fan liaison officers, 6, and they don't have the same ultra movement, they don't have the same capacity average attendance, etc., home and away, yet they still had 6, Kev. And we, all these years later, because I remember after we had the discussion, didn't we, about, JP needs support, he needs bodies, he needs staff. All these years later, we've still only got 1. Feyenoord have probably got more than 6 now, Kev.
The Feyenoord one was interesting, and some of them were ex-ultras.
Yeah.
They had came from the stands, so they knew the culture, and they were very much. It was an educational thing with them. They didn't criminalise anybody. If somebody done something in the stadium, they would bring them in, they would speak to them, and they would educate them. And I wouldn't have messed with these boys. They look like MMA fighters, or 5 of them. I wouldn't have actually argued with them whatsoever. But they were all really intelligent guys, and they were really good. With regards, there has to be somebody there that's a liaison officer, and this is I'm maybe going to sound dangerous here, but our liaison officer JP is of a certain vintage as well. The game's moving on, and you maybe need somebody who has been part of that ultra movement that's willing to actually be the liaison of the clubs. And there's a lot of intelligent guys actually in the Green Brigade. They're not just a bunch of wee neds, which people make them out to be. We've spoke with them, Paul, we've met them. They're a highly intelligent group who would be able to have structured dialogue with the club. I think what's came out with that interview that I've read is probably the most damning thing of Michael Nicholson, where he says that they had better communication with the club when Peter Law was in charge.
Yep.
And now the fusty ghost of Peter Law will always hold us back, because it haunts every aspect of the club and what we do. And that's how we're going to have a frustrating summer, because the club is built in Law's image. But for a group to come out and say they had better communication under a guy who possibly paid a lip service doesn't paint Michael Nicholson in a good light and how he's trying to resolve the situation.
Or otherwise, you're right, and obviously he was the subject of a banner on Trophy Day, Liam. I remember watching the game live, and I thought it was Netanyahu that was on the banner, and then I zoomed in, and it was Michael Nicholson. Not comparing the two of them, obviously.
Celtic would probably be less offended if it was Nicholson.
You're right, but it's a disconnect, and it's margins, Liam, and it's like, talking about the Holy Trinity, you need everybody to be, buying in to what it is we're trying to achieve here. And we're in a very, very good position, and we're looking ahead to the Champions League, yet all these wee niggly things could be sorted pretty easily. It just takes people to get their big boy pants on and meet around the table and sort it out, Liam, doesn't it?
Celtic's biggest problem, and I mean like the Celtic board, their PR, their engagement with fans and with fan media, we all know this as well from experience. Their biggest problem is that they don't know how to talk to people. They always talk at people. It's always, I'm in charge, I say this, and you will do this. And the Green Brigade quite rightly are like, who are you talking to? You don't get to order us around. We are fans. We literally pay your wages. Who's serving who here? And that does not suggest that the Green Brigade are more important than any other fans. They're not. But they have the same rights as every fan has, that they deserve respect, they deserve to be listened to, and deserve to be spoken with, not talked at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. That is the fundamental crux of, I would say, about 95% of Celtic's problems in terms of how they engage with people. Fans, the media, fan media, commercial. It's all down to the fact that they will not actually engage in dialogue with anybody. It's all one way, and it's all them telling you what they want.
Mm-hmm. You're right. And then when it's questioned, and I've said this before, if you question the academy and the lack of players coming through, you're faced with the question, what do you know about youth development? If you question recruitment, what do you know about recruitment? If you question the commercial aspect, what do you know about running a commercial team? And there really is that standoffishness, Liam, that will get you nowhere. And I'm the same. I'm not putting ultra groups above any other fans or fan groups. No. All I'm saying is ultra groups do need to liaise with the club in order to ensure that the TIFOs, etc., are put in place. So there's far more engagement required for a group like that, or the KNO, or CSCs or associations, Kev. They need to engage with the club, don't they?
That's exactly what I was going to say. The Green Brigade, somebody in the comments, I missed who it was, but the Green Brigade are 20 years old now, right? Mm-hmm. And they've had their own wee section for at least over 10 years, maybe going on 15 years. I don't actually know. But they generate the atmosphere in the stadium. Like it or lump it, they do, because they've been there that often. There's a generation of fans have grew up with them there. Yeah. So this day's a harken back to the jungle, and everybody should sing. No, by the way, that's not going to happen, because the makeup of the stadium's actually changed in that time since the stadium's been rebuilt. There's Celtic will make money from Green Brigade tifos. They'll play on our history and how the club was formed and the political nature of how the club was formed, but they won't back a fan base which stands up for that history, and that's a large portion of that fan base. And Jim Orr and me are always on the same page here. Celtic have got this wee motto that says more than a club. They'll start behaving like a club. Stop behaving like any other football team in the world. Like go and get behind your motto and actually start behaving that way. And I would want to ask them, who complained about the Show Israel the red card? If they say UEFA, go, well, stuff it. No. We are on the right side of history here. Like, so why we're backing up for Celtic, how Celtic were formed.
The club, 175 clubs across the world or something have backed that campaign. What's UEFA going to do? Ban all of them? You know?
They're going to ban all of them, eh? Like, so stop making money from our history and start standing behind our history.
Absolutely.
And be where we are. And also make the Celtic end happen. Make it happen. Any other club in the world would be go, right, we need to make this happen. But we don't. And
there's a lot of things we don't do though, Kev. There's a lot of things at a football club, and again they'll just say, but look at how much money we're making. We're doing fine. We don't need your daft wee suggestions, because I've made many suggestions to the football club, and I know the fans forum is meant to be a platform where people make suggestions to the club as well, Kev.
Aye, that's. I mean, you say the right thing there, Paul, where you say, oh, what do you know about transfers? What do you know about youth development? I'll tell you, I know nothing about transfers and do nothing. I know nothing about youth development, but I know for a fact we were robbed for Ida, we were robbed for Engels, and we haven't produced a player I know since Chris Burkett's been in post.
Well,
I didn't need to know anything to actually know that.
Kev, you're right. It's people hiding behind, I'm a professional in that field, therefore I know more than you. But you're right. Well, show me how many players and how many minutes the players have had from the academy. Because once you do that, I'm going to throw it out there. You look at, I was sent a really interesting table about, it was this every team in the Scottish League. I think I shared it on the WhatsApp group, and it was the profit margin. It was either they were in profit, they broke even, they lost money. Celtic obviously weighing ahead, top of the financial table. Rangers right down the bottom, having lost I think 17 million in the last books. Who was second? Can you remember, guys? Who was second in the Scottish football financial table in terms of their profit in the last set of accounts? Can any of you remember?
Airdrie.
Adrionians, who bizarrely enough have got a tie-in with a certain Jackie McNamara, who is one of the best talent spotters in Scottish football, who have got a player model, a trading model rather, that might mean you pluck a young kid out of a team in Ireland, put him into the Airdrie first team and give him 40 or 50 games, then sell him for 300 grand to Crystal Palace. That is a model. It's a model that works. And it's so obvious that a team like Adrionians shouldn't be sitting second in that table, but they are. That's an anomaly. Why is it an anomaly? I'll give you 2 words. Jackie McNamara. Go out and employ him. Give him a job, because he's on the naughty step alongside the Green Brigade, I believe. James Kerwin, here we go. They spend a £5, we spend a £10. The mantra that liquidated a club. Now they think that pot of gold has returned. We Celtic fans are relishing the challenge. Whatever they throw at us, our goal by quality. James, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. We don't labour the whole Rangers thing on here. But what I would
pot
say,
of gold that only leaves them 11 million in debt.
Yeah. That pot of gold. It's a strange one, Jared. I don't know if you're obviously on the outside looking in, but the reaction to investment in a football team in Scottish football, honestly, I'm looking at the media. They're salivating. They're salivating at the prospect. The fan base, it's not about, oh yeah, we're going to be run properly as a football club that isn't going to be in the bottom of the Scottish football financial table. We're actually going to be run, and there's going to be stability, and we're not going to be looking down the barrel of the gun. All they're saying is, we're the richest team in Scotland. And you're thinking, that entitlement is what ruins you. That's what ruins you, Jared. Listen, I want to see Scottish football far more challenging. I want to see it more competitive. I want to see, the standard of Scottish football bigger and better, and not just with your nearest challengers. I want to see Aberdeen, building on last season. I want to see Hibs building on what they did. Dundee United, what a great season back in the top league. Rangers and Hearts punching way below their weight when you look at the fan base of the football club and the stadium, etc., etc. So, when I see investment in Scottish football, I see it as a good thing. But I look at it from a Celtic angle, Jared. I say, right, that means we need to be better. We need to be far less complacent with this. We need to make sure that everything counts, youth development, any kind of strategy with the recruitment, etc. So I don't focus on the Rangers side of it. I focus on the Celtic side of it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like that list you sent through in the chat with the spend, right? The difference between the Rangers fans are kind of, we're the richest club, not realizing that, Dermot Desmond's also a billionaire. I'll just put that to the side for a moment. But there's a thing called, was it FSP, like the equivalent of financial fair play now? And they're talking about sustainability, the new owners over there. Yet the difference between, and they think they can just spend all this money, yet on that list you sent, Paul, we had 32 million profit. They were minus 17. That's 49 million pound difference between the two clubs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that one good window changing that and undoing all that. The thing for us is we need to come in and, as you said, we're focus on us. We just need to sharpen everything we do by 2-3% year on year. And that gap is just going to pull and just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger than it already is. Just keep doing what we're doing. Like, we need to improve our recruitment. Yes, we want a director of football. As you mentioned, Jackie McNamara, I've mentioned that on my pod numerous times. I think I've been saying it for 2-3 years. He would be ideal as a director of football. Bring him in that sort of role.
Yeah.
He would have a consistent recruitment set up. We'd have coaches planned. So say when Ange left, we had someone ready to go, a list of people. Everything would be run professionally if Peter Lawwell and the board and those guys would let him. And that's another issue. But we need to improve what we're doing and not worry about them. They're going to, whatever happens across the way there, you mentioned Hearts and Rangers underperforming. I think Hearts will turn it around before Rangers do because they've got Tony Bloom getting involved there.
Mm-hmm.
They'll turn it around quicker than Rangers will.
And the thing is, as well with them, Jared, they'll do it in such a way that it's going to be stable. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be playing great football, but obviously due to the fella they've just put in charge of the football team. but they'll do it in a balanced way rather than that whole attitude of we're the richest, therefore we need to chuck money at it. That's what put them down the tubes first time round. That's what has left them, as you say, a £50 million swing in the finances just last year. Sorry, Liam, I butted in there, mate.
No, just about that's Jared's just raised a very important point there, right? If the Scottish media were actually doing their job properly, instead of just being sycophants for one club, the Hearts story, the Hearts investment story last week has got much bigger implications than anything going on at Rangers, because 10 million of his own money. It's not a share issue. It's none of this. There's no strings attached. This Tony Bloom has given Hearts 10 million, which they will use to improve their team. I assume there's also going to be some kind of link up with Brighton, since he owns them. He's also looking at apparently investing in a French team as well. So that is far more transformative for the wider picture of Scottish football than anything that's happened at Rangers.
Also, Liam, with Bloom, the Belgian side that he's involved in have just won the Belgian league.
Aye. Yep.
He's
So,
just bought club down near Melbourne Victory as well. So he's bought them out and they lost the grand final. So there's another one to the list.
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
I know, but the focus on them, as you say, Liam, has been much dimmer than the focus over at Ibrox. But again, they're feeding the clicks. That's what they're doing. We know how it works. That's what they're trying to do.
Let them do it. There's a lot of, and because you've seen it, right? I have got a lot of messages from gloating fans of a certain club saying, we're coming, we're back, whatever, over the last 72 hours.
I know.
I am going to have a lot of fun replying to those messages at the end of next season.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre. As JP Mason said, keep your receipts, Liam. Keep your receipts.
Yes.
Cash them
they
in.
are being kept and documented. Don't you worry.
I mean,
cash them in.
If we were in the exact same position, I remember when Fergus took over, we were all jumping through hoops, and we were really, really happy. The old board were gone. Jim Orr's done a great play about it. It's absolutely a fantastic play about it. Go and see it when he puts it back on. And we were in the same, and I would be in the same boat. I would be going, we're going to do this, we're going to sign that, I would be the exact same boat. The difference is, and I'll have a look at it. Last season we were in a title race, right? When they had a half decent manager. They had a half decent coach, maybe not a manager, because I think his personality sort of let him down towards the end. I don't think his man management let him down towards. But I had a guy who had won 2 Belgian titles. He had serious credibility as an absolute manager, right? And they hunted him out the door. And what they've got to remember is he had them in a title race, eh? So all it takes for them is for us to continue the way we've been since Munich. At the start of next season, they're going to have a bounce. They are going to have a new manager bounce. It is going to be there. And they could fluke a league, because it's very easy to do in Scotland. It is very easy to do in Scotland. And they could actually run away with it. No run away with it, but they could actually win a league title if we take our eye off the ball.
Is it easy, Kev? It's only happened once in the last 14 years, isn't it?
It has only happened once in the last 4 years, but at this point, last year, with about 8 games to go, we were in a title race. They were going for a treble. Mm-hmm. So it can swing on the football field quite easily. Well,
that comes back to the complacency, doesn't it? We can't be complacent. And in this window, of all windows, we can't be complacent. And I think that my frustration is I'm getting the feeling that we're almost hedging our bets before we make our own moves. Whereas I'm of the view that we make our moves. The money's going to come. The money's going to come. The Frimpong money's coming in. Matt O'Reilly might be moving. We're going to have a sell on with that. We've got a number of players surplus to requirement, and you do the old Bernabe flip on them. Not every one of them's going to bring in 4 or 5 million quid, but accumulatively. I mean, you look at the Bernabe, Mikey Johnson, Boston Label deals that we done last season. That's astonishing. That's 10 million quid. So we've got like 11 players not contributing in the first team squad. All that money will come in. Don't wait until you sell a big star, Kev. This is my point. Go out and get your business done. Get your business done. We will not do anything to August till we see who we sell and how much we've got. We will not do anything to August. It's going to be a long, hard summer. Also, you're talking about Scottish football being a basket case. Stephen Presley's just been named the Dundee manager. Really? I'm surprised at that. I'm really surprised. Was he at Brentford? Did he have a
He was
job
at Brentford, yes.
I'm really surprised at that. Who were the runners I'd heard? I'd heard the name Sean Maloney getting mentioned.
David
And
Healy was another one.
Scott Brown in dispatches was being spoken about. The Maloney one came that day. I was up at Celtic Park pulling muscles. I was listening in the dressing room to the people in the know, if you like, because there was journalists and all the rest of it, and they were all saying, "Aye, Maloney's lined up." Aye, that's a shock. That's a shock that Big Elvis. That's why I used the tagline, taking care of business. Big Elvis goes to Dundee. There you go. All comes together. There's going to be lots and lots of players linked to Celtic. Celtic follower, would you take a punt on Miovski at 2.5? Aye.
Yes.
Absolutely. I would.
We should have done it last season.
That's a no-brainer for me at 2.5. If that's what Girona are looking for. He's not had a great season, 25 appearances, 4 goals, 2 assists. He still is only 25 years of age. We know he can do it in Scottish football. Yeah, I would 100% take a punt on Miovski. That's a no-brainer. I've heard other names. Harley Mills, left back at Peterborough, 19 years of age. Youssef El Kachati. I don't know if you've written about him yet, Liam, but I'm unsure of this one because his goals have all come in the second tier of Dutch football. Balikwisha, his name continually, like Fitzgarden, is going to be connected to Celtic. He's a left winger at Royal Antwerp. We'll see how it goes, but we will report on every name. All the movers.
I'll just throw one more name out there just before we go today. I'll throw out one more name for everybody to consider. Hasn't been linked to a Celtic yet, but he should be. And if Celtic are doing the homework, he will be. Kota Takai. Japanese centre-half, made his international debut a couple of months ago. 21 years old. Future Japan captain in the making. Really, I mean, this isn't like a Kobayashi, like he's going to be good. This guy's already good. He is already the leading player at one of the top clubs in Japan. He will move to Europe this summer. If Celtic are smart, they could get him now for probably 2 or 3 million. They should jump on it. Powerful, imposing 6'2" centre-half who can also play defensive midfield.
Probably not even on our radar, which is the biggest frustration for me, Liam. We've spoken about this time and time again. Just because Ange left the building, our interest in Japanese football shouldn't have left with him. We should have had somebody out there constantly. It could have been a link in even to yourself. You can tell us, just like Jared can in Australia, the best players on every single team in the league. You know, you've got a keen eye on it. That frustrates me a wee bit. I'm going to share something with you. Obviously, we've got a phenomenal blog, which is being managed by your good self, Liam. But we also have a shop, and we've just launched our new T-shirts. Yes, I know he could have made a better save in the Scottish Cup final, but there's a story behind every one of these.
Also, we do not endorse TV licensing necessarily. I just want to make that clear.
I know. That's a random advert. Casper Saves, there's a big story behind that. That is a collaboration with Microdot, who are a tremendous design house who designed everything for Oasis and the Verve in the 90s, among other bands. This here, no, it's not the European Cup final. It's the 3 games against Racing Club, and we're celebrating that because we were 1 game away from being the best club side in world football. If you went to the jungle back in the day, you might have had to wear a hard hat. There's stories behind that as well. And I just love the fact that back in the day, cartoons and Scottish football used to go hand in hand. Who remembers all the great cartoons by Malky McCormick? Remember them in the newspapers, Liam? You'll remember them. And brilliant caricatures and all the rest of it. So 4 new designs, loads of other designs to come. Go and check it out, Acsom.net. Kev was already sporting Casper Saves, Kev, on Saturday night. How was your Saturday night, by the way?
It was good. It was really good to speak with Big Stubbs. It's the first time I've ever seen him doing that, stuff like that. And you do forget that he was at the club over 3 distinct periods. Mm-hmm. And you do actually forget that he played quite a few games under Martin O'Neill before the health issues got in the way. And if you read Martin O'Neill's book, O'Neill speaks very, very highly about his leadership in the changing room and that. It was great to hear some of the stories of that side, the Lubo stories and stuff like that. And he's a highly intelligent guy, really, really down to earth. He was decent, and he gave you a bit of an insight, especially wee Fergus, a hard-nosed businessman who never suffered fools gladly when they came to him asking for money.
That's right.
The bonus
for stopping the 10.
Aye.
There's three things there, actually, that we'll probably touch on them in a wee bit more detail. But the first one is Fergus McCann refused to give them any bonus until the team, the squad, threatened to go on strike. There you go. And that was after stopping the 10. The other one that I found really interesting is Aston Villa bid £5.5 million for him within the first year of him joining Celtic. We could have made a quick profit on him. McCann brought up a spreadsheet and says, no, you're worth 6.5. And he wasn't going to sell him for a penny less than that. And the other one was, we finally found out, confirmed from the horse's mouth, Kev, no calling Big Stubbsy a horse, but from the horse's mouth, the referee that he was referring to that turned round to him in a game against Rangers and said, whilst I'm the ref, you'll never get a penalty against Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
He confirmed it.
He did actually confirm the name.
Remember who it was? Or are you scared to say? I'm happy to say it. It's Bobby Tate.
I had a conversation with him backstage, and he was trying
to the horse's arse.
There you go.
It was Bobby Tate, aye. But I had a conversation with him regarding Willie Young, who sent him off on his debut. That's where my head was getting a wee bit confused.
Up at Pataudry.
He also confirmed what we already knew, that Tommy Burns was an immense human being.
Oh, by the way, what he did behind the scenes, because Stubbsy and his wife didn't settle in Scotland, and
Tommy and Rosemary were unbelievable.
Took them under their wing. No, you're right. We'll probably touch on this a wee bit more in more detail, because I've not spoken much to Alan Stubbs, and some of the stuff he was telling us was incredible. That's before you get into the fact that it was the Celtic team that got Lubo in the Guinness, and he's still drinking it all these years later. Thanks everybody for getting involved. It's been a great show. It's been great to speak to you again, Jared. Give us a shout about your own podcast, how it's going, where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can find us on YouTube, Celtic Down Under. Just look for the boxing kangaroo logo on the flag behind me. You can find all our social media channels. You can find Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky. Search Celtic Down Under. Then you got CelticDownUnder.com, which is our website, which is our shop. So you can get like the t-shirts, order flags, hoodies, whatever as well if you want to support us. But yeah, above all else, we just love the team from the other side of the world and do our part to just get in there and have a chat and keep the faith from over here. So yeah, thanks for letting us come on again, Paul.
Always a pleasure. Yourself and Liam, obviously that's how we know you guys. And I've just noticed actually that I'm still promoting a gig from last Saturday. There are tickets on sale underneath the video today, but it's for Brian McClare and Peter Grant. So come along, and you might even see Kevin Graham in shorts and in action again. Thanks everybody for getting involved, and thank you to Kevin, Liam and Jared for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Cheers everybody.